Hello, this is Sheffield Hallam University's Architecture and Professional Practice screencast that goes with the Construction Industry Today lecture, and this is about the central government departments that are involved in the business of construction and their information. So we're going to have a look for where that is. So if you're in your browser, the department that you need to be looking for now is called Communities and Local Government. There you go, you'll find that. And this will take you to the main front page for the whole Communities and Local Government website. It's the government department that's looking after construction and architecture. If you go back to your browser, Planning, Building and the Environment will take you a little bit further in, but we're going to go right to the front page. And you can see here that there's information about topical stuff as well as historical and reference information. So if you go into this side here under the what we do, you can see Planning, Building and the Environment. That's the section we want to be looking at. This will give you a bit more information that's directly relating to architecture. If you look in here, there is Building Regulations, and this page used to be a little bit more accessible than it is now, and you need to scroll down here quite some way before you can actually find the key information and downloads that you need. You will need to get hold of some stuff here for AD for assignment 2 and AT perhaps for their fire and safety module, which is not to do with me, but you might still find this useful. Anyway, so if you scroll down this page, you'll right somewhere at the bottom, you'll find this Approved Documents and Building Regulations Publications. If you click on that, it will then take you to Approved Documents and Building Regulations Publications page. If you scroll a bit further down here, all of the latest approved documents, the building regulations themselves that is, can be downloaded from the planning portal. That'll then point you out of this site and over to the planning portal, where you can pick up the approved documents themselves, all the different parts of the building regulations that you'll use every day in your design profession. Go to the downloads. This set costs in the region of £300 to £400 if you actually buy them at a stationer's, but you can download the up-to-date copies as long as you are careful with your management about keeping them up to date. So this is all the approved documents sections. And for instance, if we download Part B, fire safety buildings other than dwellings, you'll need this in AD3's assignment 2. So we're going to have a look at that. You can see here that you can then save or print off a copy of this. They're fairly weighty documents, so perhaps you don't want to print them out all the time, but you could keep those. And one of the great things about these is that they're searchable, which the paper copies aren't. So if you've got the digital copies, it makes it a bit easier to find what it is you're looking for. So if you have a look in here, you'll see on the contents, if we just zoom in, plenty of information here. Means of warning and escape. So escape route design, and if you scroll around, give you plenty of information for both design and your risk assessments. So if we search, just do Control F and look under section 3, for instance, if you were looking for horizontal means of escape, you can scroll through and we can see where that's actually cropping up. No matches found. I suspect that is because it means to be horizontal escape as opposed to means of escape. Yep, there we go. So if we go along, there you go, section 3, design of horizontal escape buildings other than flats. So the Broomhall Library will come under this, and also the Eco Education Centre at the Earth Centre for the ATs. So you'll find all the data in here about tables, travel distances, and the diagrams about dead end and alternatives and that kind of thing. So that's all the really useful stuff there. If you scroll through the pages on horizontal escape, you will also eventually come to the section which is vertical escape, which does exactly the same thing. That's looking about capacities and physical arrangements of staircases and that kind of thing. So that should be everything that you need on that basis. And then also one of the really important sections for the assignment, although there are other important sections here if you're designing, is to look at section 15. Let's find all the different 15s, I suppose. And section 15 is about, let's just see if we can find it, the stuff about actually fighting a fire. So fire mains, hydrants, it's 16 actually, it's vehicle access to your buildings. So section 16, because this is very much about site planning, so it comes quite early. So this is about vehicle access to the amount of your facade, route access, widths, distances, and that's all covered in there for typical firefighting appliances. So that's where you'll find that. The other thing, as well as building control information that you can do here, is if you come back to the planning portal, this is the information. If you go to the home page for the planning portal, this is where all the basic, as it says, online planning and building regulations resource. So if the Department of Communities and Local Government is the government department that covers construction, then the planning portal is where the information is kept. In the planning section here, there's plenty of information actually on the planning system, making online applications, monitoring and viewing those, picking up the local information about policy and legislation. If we go back to our communities and local government starting point and again have a look at what we do, instead of going to planning, building and the environment, if we look in here rather than going to building regulations, if we look at the planning system, and then under here we look at national planning policy. Feel free to have a look at the other stuff, but national planning policy is where we want to go. This mentions the documentary advice that you will perhaps then actually need to consult in relation to your project. So national policy framework, various other things like that. But generally speaking, it's the planning policy guidance statements and the PPS statements that we'll be interested in. And you can see here that you can look on all of these. This is the whole collection that will affect developments that you get involved with. So you could look up delivering sustainable development if you're involved with housing or work in the green belt. You can actually look at planning policy here, and you would need to be making sure that you satisfy all the information in here in relation to your projects in order to get planning permission. So if you were to click and download, you look at these, you've got the planning policy statement information, delivering sustainable development, general principles. If we were to click on that, there's the document itself. You can see it's £12 if you actually want to buy it, or free to download. So you then have to scroll down again and download the document itself. Once you've got that, it's a dead document and you're responsible for keeping it up to date. Quite a lot of this information I'm sure you'll also find in the CIS database, but once you lose contact with that, this is actually where you'll find the information when you're outside of the university's library network. Anyway, so that's two important websites, but the department particularly is Communities and Local Government, that controls construction. I don't know how many of you know, but there is a construction minister. If we look up that map, his name is Mark Prisk. Let's just go to there. Mark Prisk. Oh, there you go. He's construction minister since this time last year. So Cameron made him, and he's particularly, he's actually a chartered surveyor, and he's been given particular responsibility for tackling climate change, and the whole kind of low carbon construction initiative. So he's our man down at Downing Street. Anyway, that's enough for the moment. Thank you for that.